Wednesday morning, the 12th, I think. Yay! Hope you're all having a beautiful day. Welcome to Daily Devotional. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, then sit down. It's going to be beautiful today. My name is Red Mooneydoll. If you don't know me, if this is your first time, thank you for coming. I do daily devotional, and there are more than 365 days of daily devotional on my channel, so you are welcome to check any of them out. Some people seem to have marked their favorite. I'm slowly working my way through listening to some of my old ones, and I'm going to create a list. Like here's a good list for this. And those of you that have been here before, I'm actually going to make a list that's a little bit more on the activism side. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more cognizant of the activism part on its own channel. Not its own channel, but its own playlist. So, today's card comes from Alana Fairchild's Medicine Heart Oracle, and the card I'm pulling is number 33, Ascendency Capacity. So I drew two cards at Samhain this year, and one was 32, Wings, Blood, and Bone, the Flying Fish, and the other one was 33, Ascendency Capacity. And we've gone over that card a couple times now. And now we're going to do this card. So I'm breaking them up into tiny sections, and I really want to dive into the depth and the meaning of these cards. So 33, I'm just going to read a little bit out of the book. Now this book is one of the really good ones with the Oracle. It comes with basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages to read. So we're going to take our time and kind of go through these slowly. So, challenges in your life are a means to a greater end, catalyzing your readiness for an increased flow of grace and refining your ability to handle higher levels of spiritual electricity and responsibility. Continue to engage in your process, recognizing that your limits are being tested. At the same time, take care and apply wisdom so that you navigate the line between breakdown and breakthrough. This is testing time and an extremely positive end in view. Embrace your power while surrendering into your wisdom. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so I'm going to read the first little section here. From the shamanistic roots of Tibetan spirituality arises the concept of Wang Tang, translating literally as a field of power. Tibetan Buddhist master Kongem Trungpa Rinpoche refers to this as a human quality of authentic presence, generated through the accumulation of spiritual merit. This is beyond the wholesome goodness that shines through a healed human heart. Trungpa taught that with humble and generous openness to others, the human being becomes able to hold spaciousness or transformation. Genuine realness and authenticity shine through such a human. The magnetic, uplifting quality of such a person is to be differentiated from a merely charismatic personality. This presence is wrought from spiritual practice that results in inner awakening to a quality that is experienced and shared in this world, yet is neither created nor limited by it. So, I want to go over a couple of things here. Ascendency capacity. So, challenges in your life are a means to a greater end, catalyzing your readiness for an increased flow of grace and refining your ability to handle higher levels of spiritual electricity and responsibility. So, and then the other phrase is a human quality of authentic presence generated through an accumulation of spiritual merit. This is beyond goodness, humble, generous openness to others, the human being becomes able to hold spaciousness for transformation. Okay, so this is the thing. You can be as charismatic as you want to be, sounds like my audio is underwater. Is that better? Do I need to start over? I can do that. Okay. Do I need to start over? I can do that. Okay. We're going to start over then. Greetings. Hello. Okay. I may actually have to edit this video. I hate editing videos. Okay. Ascendency capacity is this card. So I drew this card and this card at Samhain. And one of the things that I wanted to do is made sure I go through these cards fully over the next couple days. I've already been through all these cards, and they both come from the Medicine Heart book by Alana Fairchild. So I'm going to read this one. Ascendency capacity. Challenges in your life are a means to a greater end, catalyzing your readiness for an increased flow of grace and refining your ability to handle higher levels of spiritual electricity and responsibility. Continue to engage in your process, recognizing that your limits are being tested. At the same time, take care and apply wisdom so that you navigate the line between break down and break through. This is a testing time with an extremely positive end view. Embrace your power while surrendering into your wisdom. Wow, surrounding. From the shamanistic roots of Tibetan spirituality raises the concept of Wang Tang, translating literally as a field of power. A Tibetan Buddhist master referred to this as a human quality of authentic presence generated through the accumulation of spiritual merit. This is beyond the wholesome goodness that shines through a healed human heart. This was taught that with humble and generous openness to others, the human being becomes able to hold spaciousness for transformation. Genuineness, realness, and authenticity shine through such a human. The magnetic, uplifting quality of such a person is differentiated from a merely charismatic personality. This presence is wrought from spiritual practice that results in inner awakening to a quality that is experienced and shared in this world, yet is neither created nor limited by it. Okay, so what do we do with that? So this card has like four full pages of writing. We're not going to do all of it today. We're only going to do that section. So today's daily devotional, when I was reading through that this morning, one of the things that really struck me was the phrasing of being a spiritually authentic and genuine through accumulation of merit versus charismatic personality. And so I've been sick for more than a month now, and I'm just now starting to I think the antibiotics are finally starting to work, starting to feel human. And a lot of things have happened very quickly, very recently. And one of those things is that in my personal life, my dad died, my papa died. And he was one of those people that when you met him, you knew what that meant when I said, I'd never met anybody who didn't like him. And I'm sure people didn't like him. I'm sure people were like, I don't like that guy, Jerry. But they could still respect him. They could still honor him. They could still get along with him. There was a seeming, even when you were really mad at him or didn't like his views or whatever, people still respected him. And he's one of those people that I will always admit, always over and over again, that I would continues to teach me so much about grace,
about being authentic, about being courageous in the authentic who you are, spiritually connected entity that you are. And there's a phrase here where it says, challenges in your life are means to a greater end, catalyzing your readiness for an increased flow of grace and refining your ability to handle higher levels of spiritual electricity and responsibility. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, a dear friend of mine, Mary, and she said, well, you're just rearranging. All this illness is just you rearranging and processing and getting to a place where vibrationally you're like, you know, pulled together and processing and ready for the next thing. And I don't think she's wrong. And Papa always had this ability to step into a room, and I genuinely don't think he ever noticed it. I think he was that kind of a humble person that it would never occur to him that people would look to him in that way. But I watched it happen over and over and over again my whole life. He would walk into a room and everybody would turn around. The last time I saw him in person was 2012. And we're in a family gathering, and he walks into a room and everybody turns around. Now, you would think it's because he's a big, imposing, really tall human. Well, he's gotten older. He's not really as big as he used to be. You know, like, it's not size, it's energy, it's grace, it's, and I'm not talking in context of graceful, you know, it's grace, compassion, the ability to hold the genuine, authentic, positive energy that he just brought with him places. We all went to a swim center, and it was hilarious because, you know, we went to a different town. Nobody knew us in this town. Like, we were definitely like tourists that didn't know anybody. And I watched it happen. He got up and did something. I don't remember what he got up out of the pool and he went and walked on the side or something. And people watched him. They don't even know that they're doing it. And not because, you know, he's a big older guy or that he's drop dead gorgeous or that he's a pale white guy with blue eyes, you know, like it has nothing to do with his looks. It had to do with his energy. And recently I had, I teach an energy medicine class, and every year there's always one or two that they get offended by something that I say. And it doesn't matter how I couch it. It doesn't matter how I say, like, hey, I'm going to say things that might rub you the wrong way, or I might say things that trigger you. Let's have a conversation. You know, there's no 100% right way to do something necessarily. I mean, I have my perspectives and I like to do things a certain way, but I am also autistic and ADHD. So like, there's things I do because I like to do it that way. There are teachings that I've been taught that I like to follow to respect my elders that have taught me those things, or my ancestors, or whatever, but not because it's the one and only way to do something. And instead of hearing that part, they hear the statement or the thing that they don't like that triggers them, and they run away and they quit my class. And it's usually couched in belief system, or it's couched in, I don't feel like I'm valued, or I don't feel like my way is honored. And I'm like, congratulations. That's never what I mean. And one of the things that I've learned over these classes is that each person has their own journey, and it's okay for them to step away. It's okay for them to feel that way. It's 100% okay for them to be triggered. And it's also okay for me to be okay with that. It's letting them hold their own ability to hold the catalyzing energy in their life. And not everybody's able to do that. And when I say things that seem to be offensive or hurtful, it's never ever meant that way. So when I do say things, I sometimes have to go, okay, why did that trigger that? And could I have said that differently? And I do. I learn. I'm constantly learning how to say things a little differently, how to move with that energy, how to find that place of peace and that grace. And the funny part is that with me being sick for the last 2 months, when I get sick, I get less able to be mindful. I am less able to hold that grace. I'm less able to hold my calm. I'm so depleted that the entity within that's trying to translate through this physical meat suit sometimes just says things. And I actually had a client recently say something about that. They were like, well, that came out kind of mean. And I went, okay, what did I just say? Because I didn't even remember. Like, I had just spoken it 4 seconds ago and didn't even remember what I'd said. And they repeated it, and I went, huh, well, that's not, I mean, I said that, and I mean what I say, but I probably should have said that differently so it didn't sound that way. So we all have journeys, right? Like, we all have a journey to take the challenges, and these are challenges for me, right? Like, I'm being challenged with my dad dying. I'm being challenged with the perspective of what somebody thinks that I mean. I'm being challenged with the perception of what I bring out into the world, and I need to sit with it, and I need to come to the place of grace. I need to, according to this, which I like this, continue to engage in the process. And I recognize that my limits are being tested. I'm being challenged, and that's a good thing. World would be boring without challenges, right? And at the same time, take care and apply wisdom so you navigate between breakdown and breakthrough. And that's the part when I get sick that I'm really, really bad about. And I think in our Western culture, we're all kind of bad at it. It's one thing I'm not good at. There's a lot of things I'm not good at, but this one's I'm really not good at, which is I'm not good at navigating the difference between breakdown and breakthrough. And it's really hard to break through things when you don't feel good. And yet, it's something that I've come to a place of peace with, knowing that my physical body is very fragile compared to the spiritual self that I am, that is extraordinarily strong. But my spiritual self is quite fragile, or my bodily self is quite fragile, and my spiritual self is quite strong. So there's a mental spiritual connection place that says, well, you can do that. And my physical body goes, and you're done. And then the other part of this card, this is a testing time with extremely positive in view. Embrace your power while surrendering into your wisdom. Surrendering into your wisdom is really very much surrendering into the amalgamation of that spiritual entity inside the meat suit, accepting the limitations of the meat suit, accepting what it is you as a spiritual entity have access to in your blueprint. You know, I get this question all the time in blueprint readings. I get questions like, you know, well, I want to have access to all of my higher self. I'm like, congratulations. I think we all think we want that. The more you have access to, the harder it is to regulate sometimes the day-to-day functioning of you in the world. And I've seen people use that as an escapism. They use it as an escapism into spiritual paradigms and hierarchical, well, I'm a spiritual person, I'm always going to be positive. And they mean well. Again, they always mean well, but it it can be very difficult for everyone day to day to interact with somebody who's like that. And I know I've been accused of it, and let me tell you, I get it. I can probably sound like that. Probably can, but I'm not. I am all about being in the dirt. Being in the dirt, being in the grit, being in the grime of life, and I'm not better than anyone else. There are gifts that I have that are a bit baffling and probably seem like I'm better than everybody else, but I'm not. And I know that I'm not. If anything, every client that comes to me, every student that comes to me, every interaction I have teaches me something. It's an opportunity to be humble. It's an opportunity to be with somebody in grace and help them find their journey. And unfortunately, when I'm teaching, sometimes the format of teaching is an antithesis to that. And I love teaching the energy medicine course. I love it. Absolutely love it. What I don't love is that there is a structure in this particular school setting that can be very constricting. And because of that, there's like this, we have to get through these things. And that's the part that can seem very much to extraordinarily sensitive people as a push. And I'm going to be having that conversation just to make sure that it's out there. And some classes go at a different pace, and I have to be okay with that. So I'm always learning. Every new set of students teaches me something new about how to approach a subject, how to interact with my students, how to move forward with different things. And I've learned something very valuable already. And this class has taught me a lot. And we're only into the third class starting today. So this card, Ascendency capacity, is a couple things about, I mean, the whole card is about how to move and ascend. And I really don't like that word because it's like, oh, I'm ascending a mountain. Well, spiritual work is not going up a mountain. Okay, it's not. It's a spiral. You're going to spiral, you're going to spin, and you're going to spin down, and then you're going to spin up, and you're going to spin down. And if you happen to end up at a little bit of a different level or a different level up or down, none of those are good or bad or above or behind anyone else. They just are. It's just you. And you should be valued for where you're at. I value you. So in taking this daily devotion out into the world today, one of my big goals is to find where I'm sitting in the spiral with my students and be there with them. And no matter where I'm at in the spiral, have grace, have place of peace, lean into my body feeling a little bit better this week, lean into my capacity to go at their pace and be able to ask the questions they want to ask. So I'm a firm believer in student-centered learning. And I know that last week it was material-centered learning, and I was also pushing really hard to get certain material work done. And I think that whether I meant to or not, I triggered some people, and I have to own that. And it's okay to own that. There's no shame in that. It's actually a learning opportunity. And my papa has passed on. He's gone into the other world, and he's a light out of the world. And we all have beautiful people that we have encountered in the world that stay for just a little while and they're gone. And then we have to carry that on. And we teach each other so much, and we need to honor that. We honor our ancestors, but we live for our descendants. And this is the piece that we have to finish that phrase when we talk about honoring our ancestors. We honor our ancestors and we live for our descendants. I'm not living for my ancestors, I'm living for my descendants. And that means the things that I do, I need to be mindful of how that affects and interacts with my descendants. And it doesn't matter if you have children, it doesn't matter if you have chosen to have children or not to have children. It doesn't mean you're supposed to have children. This is not a shaming game in any way. You do not have to have descendants. You do not need to have children. But living for our descendants means living in a mindful, connected, intentional way. Any descendants, any people that live after you. I used to volunteer many, many, many years ago at nursing homes occasionally. And one of the things that I value to this day is the experience of having all those beautiful older people to learn from, all their stories. And I grew up with my papa, who was a storyteller. He loved stories. He made history interesting. I loved history in school because I could talk about what happened in school and go home and listen to his stories because he'd have beautiful stories to tell me. And he was better than a child's storybook. He was great. And one of the things that so many of those elders did for me is show me that they lived for their descendants. Not all of them, but some of them did. And I know that that's what Papa did. He lived for his descendants. And when you live for your descendants, you take what you learn and you share it and you gift it to the next generation. And you do this with grace, compassion, and you help them have critical thinking about their choices. You help them find two sides of the same coin to make their own decision for the next step. You create possibilities for them to step into the world and fill it how they want to fill it. I always looked at parenting very differently. I didn't have kids to make mini-me's of me. I didn't. I never did, and I would never want somebody to do that. My children were opportunities for them to fill their life. I raised my children with the mindset that I wanted them to have the skills to fill their life and step into the world as themselves. I made choices that a lot of people would not have made. I made sacrifices that probably don't make a lot of sense. I also did dumbass shit because I'm a human. Honor our ancestors, but live for our descendants. And that is what ascendancy is. Ascendancy is not ascending to a peak. It's a very linear mindset, and we have to let that go. Ascendancy is the spiral of moving up and down, honoring your ancestors and living for our descendants. So that's the prayer I want to send out into the world, and I encourage you to take that prayer. Take each of your interactions. Honor your ancestors and live for your descendants, and ascend through the spiral. Allow yourself to go up and down that spiral throughout your day. It's a beautiful place to be, right, Astra? She's so beautiful this morning. You've been so sweet. You've been so sweet. I hope you all have a beautiful day. I wish you could see her eyes. I'm just terrible at moving the camera so you can see it, but she says hi too. And I will see you in prayer. Blessed be. My Astra.